Welcome to your members only stream brought to you by Andy. Obviously this is for the FPL Academy. Welcome. You can already see that there are people in the chat, so lovely to have you there. We can see Brian, Cage Paps, Liam. We can see Ron Manager as well. Bonsoir, bonsoir indeed. I can't believe it. I can't actually believe we're looking at game week 3 already. I am slowly recovering from my weekend in Italy. Wasn't feeling normal until about Thursday, I would say. But yeah, so it's Friday, Saturday deadline, lovely stuff before the international break. So we kind of already have had 3 game weeks in the book, which is absolutely crazy, really. But we got quite a few choices to make this week, more choices than we've had for the first 2 weeks. And I feel like the first 2 weeks have been quite kind to us. So I'm quite looking forward to having a few more choices to make. And I'm expecting a tough week this week. So good decisions, hopefully, get rewarded. But we will see what happens. Now, before we do anything else, just going to talk to you about what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to look through our league and see who did well this week, who's doing well this season. We're going to be looking at your questions from the FPL Academy. So if you post them on school, we're going to look through those. We're going to be looking in the chat, seeing who has got questions in the chat as well, because this is obviously your time to ask me. You get all the time in the WhatsApp as well to ask me, but it's quite nice to be able to do it live here so you know it will definitely get answered. And then we're going to look at my team as well. So let's just have a look and see how everybody got on this week. So I'm using FPL Game Week here because they're fantastic. They're so good. So Paul Evans with 95 points. 95 points, Paul. Absolutely fantastic from you this week. Without playing triple captain as well. If we scroll down to his team down here, 95 points with Gibbs White, Gordon, Son, Haaland captain. Absolutely smashed it. Anthony Robinson coming in there as well, and Ben White. Not a bad score at all. Up to 1.2 million. That is a pretty good score, mate. Well done. 95 points. And close behind, Bashir and Ian, both with 94 there. Special shout out as well to Bashir because he is top with 176 points. And if we click on him, 176 points. He is currently 35k. So Bashir is absolutely killing it. What a start to the season for Bashir. Fair play to you, mate. Caroline, 77, 170 points. She's used her wild card. She's also used her bench boost as well in game week 1. And then Steve as well on 87 points, and he's up to 166 points. So if we click on Caroline, 170 points, 85k. So well done to both of you, both in the top 100k. Is Steve in the top 100k as well? Oh, he's just outside of it. 4 points and he's outside of it. So fair play to Bashir, Caroline and Steve, who are top 3 in the league at the moment. And for game weeks last week, it was Paul, Bashir and Ian as well. I'm kind of languishing in 9th and 11th in terms of game week in league. But, you know, that's exactly where I want to be. So let's have a look then very, very quickly at my team. So my team at the moment, I'm very much hoping I can roll. I am currently 715k, 154 points. Take that, solid start, absolutely fine with that. Henderson in goal, but at least they're definitely reinforcing their defence. They got Lacroix over the line, and they've got Chalobah by the looks of things as well. So that's looking quite good. Anthony Robinson, Trent and Gvardiol with Smith Rowe, Gibbs White, Jota and Saka in the middle, with Muniz, Isak and Haaland up top. I do have Hall, Rodgers and Barco on the bench. I need to decide what to do with Rodgers. I told people as well that I was going to talk about it a bit tonight. I need to have a look at Rodgers and Muniz and see which one of those I'm going to play. Because I'm not going to drop any of the others. So it's whether I drop Rodgers or Muniz personally. I suppose actually it could be Smith Rowe I drop. But yeah, so we've got to see. I feel less worried about benching Rodgers, but I do like Rodgers for this fixture, and I feel like if you don't have him, buying him now is a really good time to buy him, especially if you're moving down from Nkunku. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I think I'm going to roll. I was very tempted to do Saka to Palmer because I got 1.5 in the bank, but I feel like Saka could still have a good game in this one, and keeping that transfer is good. So I want to have 2 free transfers next week if I can. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at the moment. Majority of that team looks fine. I think maybe playing Rodgers instead of having that triple Fulham might be the way, but we'll see. Right, let's jump into some questions then, because we've got quite a few questions this week, which is lovely. Paul is in the chat as well. Paul Norris, one of the Pauls, is in the chat, so welcome, Paul, as well. Brian says, Game Week 3 dilemmas. And Nkunku to Rodgers done. Good move. Frees up some money there as well. Solanke to Havertz, Watkins or Pedro. Pedro allows Saka to Salah next week, leaning towards Pedro. He's also not playing in the international break. No plans to wildcard, wait and see when it's needed. I like that move personally. It depends. I'm assuming you've got two other good strikers as well. So I'm assuming you've got Haaland and you've got someone else. I think that is a good move. Havertz is fine. And actually, it looks like Arsenal aren't going to get another striker in this window, so that's good too. Watkins, I'm not as hot on as everybody else. I think you can wait a week on Watkins, but Pedro, freeing up that money, I think is a really good move personally. Would you free up like 2 mil? I think that's a good move, and especially if it allows you to get to Salah next week. Because Saka, I think after this week, maybe people are going to be looking at moving on from Saka to get someone like a Palmer. So, yeah, I don't hate that move at all. Pedro's playing all the minutes. It could be threatened with all the amount of players that Brighton have now, but I think that's a good move personally. In the chat, by the way, and I always prioritise the chat ones because you're here now and you want the answers now. Ron Manager, for those who are already looking to either Game Week 4 or Game Week 6 for playing their wildcard, what do you think the main difference would be between these two strategies? For me, I have no plan on me. Now, if we have a look at Lego Mane's hop on, hop off. So if you were going for Game Week 4, you'd have to have some Man City in it. You go heavy on Liverpool because of Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth. You'd have Watkins, most probably, because they got Everton and Wolves and then Ipswich. So you go for all of those. You'd probably have to have Palmer as well. The thing that would be different is your lack of Arsenal. So you wouldn't have Arsenal because they'd have Spurs away and Man City away. Whereas if you wildcard in Game Week 6, that's when you're going to be on the Arsenal. So you're most likely going to be coming off of Liverpool, I would say, and not having quite as many Liverpool assets, but you are most probably going to be having Saka, Havertz, maybe double defence because they've got Leicester at home, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away. You're expecting 2 out of 3 clean sheets in those at least. So it's the lack of Arsenal, I would say. For me personally, I don't think wildcarding this week is the play. Wildcarding next week looks fine, but I would want to make sure that by Game Week 6, if I wildcarded now, that I could get to my Arsenal by Game Week 6. That is the most important thing for me personally. I think that's doable, especially with if you've got a transfer already, you wildcard, you get another transfer. I think that's doable, but I would want to make sure I could by Game Week 6. Other things could crop up, that's the other thing. So by Game Week 6, I think your team will look really, really good if you wildcarded then and you add Saliba, Raya, or Saliba, Gabriel, Saka. All of a sudden that starts looking really good. Also, it's just that more information as well by Game Week 6. That's the other big thing I would say. So, yeah, I think the big difference is Arsenal, basically. There are some other teams that will be splatterings about as well. Like obviously by Game Week 6, we're probably still going Chelsea actually with Brighton Forest, but it's still only Palmer. And there's obviously other teams that might start looking good by then. It's a lot easier to pick a keeper by Game Week 6. So someone like Flecken comes in quite nicely by Game Week 6, I would say. Also, you can maybe jump on Brighton, is it? I think they rotate quite nice. No, Brighton by then is looking not so good by Game Week 6. So, yeah, I would say if you were wildcard in Game Week 4, you'd have more Brighton, whereas in Game Week 6 you'd have more Arsenal. Paul Norris is the best Paul. No comment. Yes, Paul. Ron Manager, after me, that is, obviously. Brian, yes, Haaland and Isak. Yes, so if you got Haaland and Isak, I would go Pedro, definitely. Cage Paps, Ron is a closet Paul. He is a closet Paul. Ron Manager says, I am, yes, I've always been a Paul. FPL Henners. Hello, Henners says, hey, everyone. Nice to see you in the chat, mate. Paul Norris, Ipswich and talks to loan Reece Nelson from Arsenal. Yeah, I don't hate that. I thought he was going to go to somewhere like Palace, but I think that's a really good signing for Ipswich. I still stand by it. I think Ipswich are going to be the team that does the best out of the promoted lot, but we will see. Right, let's go back to the questions. Yeah, like I said, I think, Brian, I would go for Pedro, personally. I think freeing up the funds, you're going to want those in midfield, and you're doing the right thing thinking Saka to Salah. Dimitro, Nkunku to Rodgers, done. There's a theme here. 1.5 million in the bank and 1 free transfer remaining. I plan to do Solanke to Watkins. Are there any better moves available? Captain Salah, Saka, Watkins if I buy him. So again, as I've just said, I don't hate the move of going to Pedro. Genuinely don't. And actually, if you look at the fixtures and you look at Newcastle, there's every possibility that you could just move Isak to Watkins next week, potentially, because there's a lot of away games there and there's City. We know Newcastle maybe aren't as good away, so maybe it's Isak to Watkins is the move, moving down to Pedro and then upgrading a midfielder. I don't hate that at all. And obviously I've mentioned that to Paul already, to Brian already, so I don't hate that move. I just think it's a week early on Watkins. I could be completely wrong, and all those people moving to Watkins could benefit greatly compared to what I'm doing. But I just think it's a week early. He still looks tired. Duran's just there, ready to play, to, eat into his minutes as well. He hasn't been getting a full load of minutes, so and there's no guarantees on penalties yet either. So I think it's a week early on Watkins. I think get another load of information, another week. You could move to Pedro first. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking personally. Will Webster, evening Will, says, is it worth a hit to take out Nkunku? I'd rather not, but he's apparently dropping again tonight. Think I might just have to hold, unfortunately. Plan is to get Trent in next week with my 2 million in the bank. I mean, personally, for a hit, the thing is he could play this week. Like, I'm seeing rumours that Madueke might not start. Like, he's going to be a nightmare every week. But the player you get in for him, is he likely to make up that -4 this week? It's tough at that price point. I don't think there's many I would trust at that price point. Obviously, if you get someone like Rodgers or Smith Rowe, they've got the fixtures in front of them. Rodgers more than Smith Rowe. They've got the fixtures in front of them to justify a -4 over all those weeks. But I don't think anybody at that price point will do it for this week, personally. And if Nkunku, even if he comes on, that means the player you bring in has to return. And I can't guarantee having to return for most players at that price point. So I find that tough. And if you roll and you can still get Trent next week, even with an Nkunku price drop, I think get Trent next week for free and keep Nkunku for another week, personally. Sounds horrible. And this is the problem with Nkunku now, is you're going to have this every week. But yeah, I'd probably make sure you can get Trent next week for free. Cage Paps, Newcastle haven't looked great, not to annoy any of the pools. So it feels tough to give Isak another week, but I get it. It does. But the thing is, he's on pens. He's a great striker. Playing for a team that can create, I just think it's not like he's injured or anything. He could just get you a goal. And as soon as he gets you a goal, you're expecting so much from that other player you bring in. So I personally think keep him for that one extra week. And then, like I said, you can maybe change into Watkins after that. It's something I'm looking to do personally, which is why I really want 2 free transfers next week. Helen said she couldn't make it tonight. She's got her boys and everything, bless her. It says, hey, no major questions this week. Hoping this looks all right for a roll. Will be lots of dilemmas next week, though. Watkins or Palmer or Salah or lose Haaland. Exactly. Let's just have a look at it. So she's got Henderson in goal. You're one of me. Saliba, Gvardiol, Trent, lovely. Jota, Smith Rowe, Rodgers, Saka, Isak, Haaland, Muniz. That looks absolutely fine. That looks really, really good. Nothing wrong with that at all. And you're rolling, Helen. I'm so happy. So proud, Helen. Caroline says, thoughts on the new Liverpool signing on minutes and rotation impacts? Yeah. So Liverpool obviously got it over the line that they got Chiesa. I used to love him as a player. Definitely in the last 2 years, he hasn't progressed as people thought he would. People thought he was going to be the next big Italian winger, and obviously it hasn't really worked out like that. Even in the Euros, like we obviously watched him in the last Euros, he was great, and in this one he barely featured. So I think personally he's back up. I think he's back up to Salah. I feel like they are just going to interchange all of those players. Jota's going to get injured at some point, but Jota's still first choice for me. Darwin's not, Gakpo's not. It is that Diaz, Jota, Salah. The only thing that will happen potentially is obviously Diaz. It will affect his minutes, I would have thought. But he was already getting affected anyway. Jota is so effective even when he only plays 70, so I wouldn't worry too much. It's just when Jota gets injured, which we're expecting to happen at some point. So I still think Jota is the best pound-to-pound player we've got in FPL, or in at least top kind of 3 or 5. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried at the moment. But to be honest, when we get to wildcard, it's probably going to be Salah or nothing, isn't it? So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried at the moment. Ron Manager, the best hope with Newcastle is that they're at home and that a good performance might click them back into shape. If they look dodgy for much longer, then I'll be looking to divest Gordon and Isak. Yep, I completely agree. And I do, like I said, I think Isak to Watkins and then Gordon to someone, if you can move him up to, say, a Saka, a Palmer, Foden, whatever it is, I think is good. Ron Manager, which would allow Pedro and Saka, Son, Palmer, exactly. Cage Paps, I'm glad Gordon got his goal last week. I don't feel so bad selling him for Palmer. Even if Gordon returns this week, I got something from him. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? Just feels like it's a little bit better selling him now. But no, I do agree. Completely agree. I think it was good Gordon got that last week. So I felt bad for owners in that first week against Southampton. But they got their goal this week, which is good. So selling him for Palmer if you can, I think that's great. Absolutely fine move that. Paul Norris, benching dilemmas. Porro versus Robinson. Are Newcastle really in turmoil? I think they are a little bit. And Eze versus Rodgers. Classy player against tired Chelsea versus exciting talent. So Porro versus Robinson I think is easy. I think I play Porro just for that attacking upside. Robinson has looked great, but you'd always expect something from Porro, whereas Robinson, you'd be happy if you got a return, but I don't think you're expecting it. So definitely Porro. And then Eze versus Rodgers. Now I saw FPL Harry, post a poll up today, got about 17,000 votes, and it was do I bench Eze, Rodgers or Smith Rowe? 60% of people went for Eze. Now, it is a tied Chelsea. I mean, can you have a tied Chelsea when you've got about 45 players to choose from? I'm not sure. But Eze, I think if Eze had scored that free kick, I don't think anybody would be mentioning him. But I think people are just starting to get a bit worried that maybe it's kind of, a lot of good underlying stats and he isn't actually returning yet. Rodgers, I think if I had Eze and Rodgers, I think I'd play Eze personally, but I do like that Rodgers one. I started the week so high on Rodgers and I'm slowly going off him. I don't know why. There's no reason to go off him, and if you've got him, he's a good start, but I think I'd probably play Eze. It's on penalties as well, most likely, so I think I'd probably play Eze personally. Andy Robinson, any opinions on Rodgers versus Pedro this game week? Now, this is a different one for me. Pedro has the better stats over the past 2 games, but he faces Arsenal, arguably the best defence in the league. Rodgers has potential, but we're yet to see it materialise. Currently, I'm on Rodgers, as Leicester's XGA has been much worse so far. Rodgers actually has more shots than Pedro, though his XG and XGI is lower. Is it just a case of keep it simple, stupid and play Rodgers, or would you ever favour the forward? I know there's thoughts forwards have the bonus points boost this season. They do. As I type this out, I'm becoming more convinced Rodgers is the right decision looking at his heat map. Yeah, I would personally go Rodgers, and it's not to do with any of that. It's to do with Arsenal. They are genuinely just the best defence in the league. Like, they are so ridiculously good off the ball, and they're so good in possession. They hardly concede any XGC. For me, they are fast becoming the hardest team to play in the league for attackers. So if you're facing them away from home, I just think it's not worth it. Unless they are one of the best players in the league, like Salah or Haaland, whatever it is, I think Rodgers is the play there, personally, easily. Even though Pedro's on pens, I think Rodgers is the play. FPL Henners in the chat, by the way, says, thoughts on Bruno Fernandes, Andy? I'm happy to keep the faith, but how long would you last with him? Not much longer, to be honest. If I'm looking at the fixtures here, so where are Man United? There they are. Got Liverpool at home, Southampton away, Crystal Palace away, Spurs at home. They're not great, are they? Southampton away and Crystal Palace away aren't too bad, but away from home, I think personally, probably keep him for this week and then make him your cash cow to try and get to one of those Palmers, those Saka's players. Well, not Saka probably from next week, but Palmer definitely. So yeah, I think probably keep him this week unless you've got nothing else to do. If you can, get Palmer. Personally, yeah, I didn't like him at the beginning of the season, and I don't like him much now either. Cage Paps, only Arsenal and Liverpool haven't conceded in the first 2 games. Yeah, that is right, isn't it? Yeah, Arsenal are just brilliant. They really are. Liam Young, I think I saw you in the chat as well, Liam. Would it be madness to captain Bruno? He's been very much involved in United's first 2 games, and I feel a goal is coming. He scored in game week 3 last season and in this fixture last season. Is it an omen, or am I going mad? As it stands, he's got the armband. Going to say it now. Yes, I think that's mad. Personally, he could do something against Liverpool. Of course he can. Any player can do something against anybody. But I wouldn't be doing that myself. I think... He scored in game week 3 last year and he scored against them last year. Doesn't mean anything this year, unfortunately. I think you've got better captaincy options there. I would say Salah is a better captaincy option. I think that's an okay fixture for him against United. I think Havertz is a better captaincy option as well. Even Gibbs-White isn't a bad captaincy option out of your team. I don't think Bruno is the best captaincy option you've got there. Also, I think personally, I would do Pedro in and Concert out in your team, but I'm just looking at it there. I think that's probably what I would do. Also, Calvert-Lewin, is there any chance you can get to Pedro next week? He's looking like a bit of an eyesore there in your team, bless you. Yeah, lovely stuff. So that's most of it there. I thought we had a few more questions there, 9 questions, but we got through those quite quickly, actually. Just looking at the transfer planner, in terms of expected points, Haaland is top for expected points. I'm assuming that's not too much affected by his hat-trick last week, but obviously he got his hat-trick last week against Ipswich. Well done to all those people that triple captained him as well. Mo Salah second, De Bruyne. Saka is actually in 4th. Palmer is like 8th or 9th here, which I thought was quite interesting. If I had Palmer, I would 100% be captaining him this week. Like 100%. Even over Haaland. I'm going to be on Haaland captain, but I would have Palmer captain if I owned him. Personally. Caroline, I'm here but late. Hi Caroline, we gave you a bit of a shout out at the beginning, so make sure you watch back. Cage Paps, think Havertz will get at least one attack in return. I still haven't considered buying him, mind you. I'm starting to wonder whether people are going to start getting Havertz in their team. When we look at the fixtures again, so Arsenal, by game week 6, Leicester at home, Southampton at home, Bournemouth away, I think people are going to start moving to him. It's just whether you go double defence or whether you go Havertz. Because everybody's going to have Saka, and it's whether you want double defence. Now, I think I'm going to be on double defence because I want, 2 slices of that cake. But Havertz could do well in those games, potentially. So, I mean, Sterling could be coming in now, so that might muddy the water a little bit. But I think that's when I go on double defence, personally, rather than Havertz. Let's have a look. Paul Norris, Andy, are you planning to move Salah and or Palmer in game week 4? So let's have a look again at the fixtures. So from game week 4, I mean, Chelsea's good run starts already, really, doesn't it? I've been debating this all week about whether I move Saka to Palmer this week, because I'm going to want to do it next week anyway. And at least then I think Crystal Palace at home with their defence like it is at the moment is better than Brighton at home for Arsenal. And I've been thinking about it all week. And I'm so tempted, but I really want to roll that transfer. I am very, very tempted though. Not sure. And then Salah, as long as Jota's fit, I'm not getting Salah. So I'm not getting Salah until I wildcard. So that'll be from probably game week 6 onwards. And I don't think I'd be investing in Salah in that week. I really want Palmer. And I would really want Saka from game week 6 onwards. So it's whether I get Palmer now. I don't know. Let me know in the chat. What do you think? Should I do Saka to Palmer? I can do it because I've got the money in the bank. Where's the other one? Ron says, have any transfers into between Premier League clubs today caught your eye for potential FPL prospects in the next couple of weeks? Not massively. I think there's a few that have affected players and whether they're going to be better or not. So, for instance, Crystal Palace getting their 2 central defenders, I think helps Henderson an awful lot because he needs somebody in front of him. I think Sterling potentially going to Arsenal does make things a little bit interesting in terms of rotation. I think Chiesa is just another player that will obviously play for Liverpool and could take some minutes off people. But like I said, I think Jota's okay until he gets injured. Apart from that, I think it's all been okay. You're still expecting a few signings, I'm assuming. The interesting one I keep seeing is James Ward-Prowse going to Forest, which means Morgan Gibbs-White won't be on pens anymore. But I don't think Ward-Prowse was on pens at West Ham anyway. I think it was Paquetá. So I don't see why he would take them from Morgan Gibbs-White, personally. So I wouldn't be too worried as a Gibbs-White owner. Liam Young, thanks Andy, you're right, I'm going mad. No worries. 3 times transfers next week for the first time in Premier League history. No more DCL as of then. Nice. 3 transfers, mate. That is lovely. Make sure you screenshot that and I'll retweet it on Twitter because that is awesome. Vicky Maddox, hi Vicky, saying, hi Andy, bench Ruben Diaz, Robinson or Porro. So I would say, let me just go back on the transfer planner, by the way. Or no, let's go on there. Bench Ruben Diaz, Robinson or Porro. I'd probably bench Diaz. Is there even a guarantee he's going to start next week? I don't think there is. I'd be looking to get rid of him if you can soon as well. But yeah, I play Robinson and Porro personally. I think that's 2 nice players to play there. Brian says, save your transfer, Andy. I know, Saka could do well against this Brighton team. And he could potentially be up against Hinchelwood unless they swap things round. I really like Palmer this week. Cage Paps, I have both Saka and Palmer, so consider that. But Saka against Brighton sounds quite tasty. I think I'd be tempted to wait and maybe get Palmer next week. Yeah, I think if I don't get him, I'm going to be getting him next week. I need to properly have a look at what I'm going to do next week if I save the transfer. I'd love to roll again, but I need Palmer. But I look at those fixtures and I don't like moving early. But those fixtures are just ridiculous. Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Nottingham Forest. And the first one being Palace at home. Reminded us what he did last week. He hasn't had a pen yet. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think about it overnight, about whether I do it or not. And I'll let you know in the morning. Paul Norris, I could do Saka to Palmer if I free up 0.5 elsewhere for free, but I've chosen not to because of the international break. Yeah, I don't hate that either, and having 2 free transfers after the international break is quite nice. It's just obviously what you can do with them, but yeah, I'm not sure. Cage Paps, I'm surprised Palmer didn't increase in price. Price changes, isn't it? I'd never ever understand price changes. They are ridiculous. Brian, international break injuries are a thing. They very much are. So I'm just looking, because this is FPL team, by the way, obviously amazing. Peter, shout out because he watches these after as well. If I take Saka out this week and do bring in Palmer, and then next week, if I can move on to next week, there we go. I've got 1 million in the bank, and then do I just get Watkins in? So then I can do Isak to Watkins. And that looks quite nice, doesn't it? And he's got Everton at home, and I've already got Palmer and Saka, because what I'm missing out on Spurs away for Saka. I mean, he could still do something in that game. I don't hate this. I'm going to be deciding this overnight, and then I've still got 0.5 in the bank after doing that. The rest of my team look all right. The rest of my team looks lovely. Oh, yeah, and I can bench Gibbs White. I can play Rodgers instead. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to see. Cage Paps, is Palmer going to get many minutes for England though? He should, but yeah. Who knows? It'll probably be Angel Gomez now, won't it? I mean, it should be that Palmer is starting to become integral in that England team. You'd think. Should have been over the Euros, but there you go. Yeah, I'm going to think on that and see. And I'm also going to think on Rodgers or Muniz, but I think I'm probably going to play Muniz. Yeah, I'm going to think on that. Vicky, who would you captain between Saka and Watkins? This week, I would captain, if we have a look at the fixtures, if we have a look over here as well, expected points for this week, Saka is higher than Watkins in FPL team. And if we look at the fixtures, so Brighton or, can't remember who Villa have now, Leicester away, I'd still go with Saka this week, I think. I go with Saka over Watkins this week. Watkins, likely still playing 60, 65? Duran comes on. Saka most likely going to be playing 85, 87 minutes on penalties as well. Brighton have looked good though, but I think that, Arsenal score at least 2. So yeah, I think I would personally captain Saka over Watkins. Cage Paps, if you do bring Palmer in, you're certain you captain him? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would. I really am. I look at Palmer. It happened last year when he was 5.5. Now he's a premium asset at 10.5. People still aren't treating him like he is. I look at it and just think, Crystal Palace at home, I still just think they can do such damage against him, and he's on pens as well. And it's not like their defenders that they're bringing in are going to be playing, against Chelsea. So yeah, I would, if I brought him in, I captain him, 100%. Right, lovely stuff. About half an hour is a perfect timing. If you've got another question, chuck it in the next minute. Otherwise, I will stop the stream about here. Hope you enjoyed it this week. Really, really exciting week, I think. I hate this because now I'm really thinking about getting Palmer and I don't think I can do it. I don't know. Right, thank you so much this week. Really, really enjoyed having you in the chat. I think we had about 10 people in the chat at one point, which is lovely, so thank you. And if you're listening after, thank you so much for listening to the recording. If you're not a member, think about joining. The link is on the end and it's also at the bottom of the video, so make sure you have a look. 40 odd people in our chat. It's honestly filled with such good people. We've got about 6 Pauls, about 7 Andys, and they're all lovely. So make sure you come in. Cage Paps, cheers, have a good one. Ron, thanks, Annie, very enjoyable one this evening. Henners, best of luck, everyone. Cheers, guys. We'll see you in the chat. We'll be there tomorrow morning, ready to help everybody as well, because it's going to be interesting up to deadline, I would say. So thank you very much, all, and we'll see you all again next week. Bye-bye.